you see all these, things sometimes on Instagram where it's like mommy's little helper and it's a glass of wine,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it's masking something deeper.
Yeah, I think people use substances, and so I think they drink for really good reasons.
Yeah.
And they're their own good reasons, but primarily relief and reward. So it's relief from a stressful day, emotions, life, relationships. I mean, relationships with people were a big reason why I drank. And I didn't really know what was wrong, but that it was a big factor of how I related to people and how they related to me, and not getting along, and a lot of self-will, and on my part, a lot of defiance. And I put myself in situations with people that I wasn't being my authentic self. So when they behaved a way I didn't like, I go nuclear on them, and then alcohol added to that. So people do drink for all of those reasons you've mentioned, emotional regulation. And then it becomes a habit, right? Like our coffee or a chocolate. Like if I had to stop drinking coffee tomorrow morning and having a bit of chocolate, I'm pretty irritable.
Welcome back to Coming Into Focus. I am your host, Helen Tansey. On today's show, we get to dive into a topic that I haven't done before, and I've really been wanting to do it, is on addiction. I have always been very open about my relationship with alcohol and that I have been sober for 10 years. And today I have Susan Raphael, and she is going to take us through her story with addiction, but also what we can do to help ourselves, what are some of the myths around quitting drinking. And we both just sort of have this beautiful conversation where we share our journey out of alcohol. So I hope that you enjoy this show. Let's get to it. Susan, I am very excited that you are here today, and we're going to be talking about addiction. But before we get into that, instead of me introducing you, do you mind sharing with our listeners what it is that you do?
Hi, Helen. It's great to be here. Sure. My name is Susan Raphael, and I'm a mental health and addiction clinician. So I work in private practice, small private practice here in Toronto. I work with families, parents, loved ones, and young people that are struggling with mental health issues and addiction challenges, substance use disorder challenges. And I'm also a person in long-term recovery myself. And I bring my lived experience to my professional work as well.
I know that you are 27 years sober.
Yeah. Next month, one day at a time.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But a question that I ask all my guests, and it doesn't matter what the topic we're talking about, is, do you mind sharing your age?
Not at all. I'm 58.
58. And when, and how do you feel about aging?
I feel like there's a lot of pressure on us aging. And on the flip side, I feel really grateful to be connected to my authentic self at this stage in my life. And my mind and my body and my health and well-being are really the focus for me and priorities in my life. So I'm very, in that respect, I feel very in control. But to be honest, aging is challenging, and I'm vain and I like to look good. So it's a day by day kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, you do look good. And also, I love this sweater you're wearing.
Thank you. It's sweater weather.
It is, with all this snow that we've gotten. It for sure is. So you and I had this discovery call because we just sort of wanted to have a conversation about the topic of addiction, because it's quite broad, the topic of addiction. And one of the things that we thought is that it'd be good if we talked about maybe more women and addiction, because you've been sober 27 years. I've been sober 10 years. And when we were talking, I think near the end of the conversation, you asked me if I remembered you. And I remember thinking like, oh shit, like, did I thought that maybe it was a time that I'd met you where I was drunk or something.
No.
No, but it was back in the days where we worked in a retail store together.
Yes, a long, long time ago.
Long, long time ago. So can you just talk, as you said, 27 years ago, what was your turning point? Do you mind taking us through that story?
Sure. Well, I think the most clear way to do that is to kind of take us back to 27 years ago around this time of year. So I had gone through another horrific holiday season where I was likely blacked out most of it. I was here in Toronto after coming back from Vancouver, where I had gone for a number of years as kind of a geographic cure, thinking that maybe my eating disorder, my trauma, my addiction to alcohol and cocaine won't come with me to Vancouver. But they did, and they got worse. So I was kind of bottoming out in another way. Like I had several dips and was homeless in Vancouver and in the shelter system for women. For women in abusive relationships, they called it battered women support services back then. I think they have different terminology today, but that's what it was called then. And so I was in that shelter system after being in progressively more abusive relationships, where I was also a participant in the alcohol abuse and the physical and other forms of abuse. And then, so that was kind of my physical bottom where I had nowhere to live and I had a lot of pride. So didn't want to call and ask for help. I had family here in Toronto, ended up coming back to Toronto. So bootstrapped my way up. But the wheels were starting to fall off and the reality was I couldn't stop drinking on my own. And I don't even know if I had the desire to stop drinking on my own until I hit sort of another bottom and was going to lose my job, the job that I had that had been pretty much, given to me by a sister, and ended up in detox. And I had been in detox before, women's detox in Toronto. So another women only kind of situation, but that something was different this time. And I heard about the possibility of going to a women's treatment program. And so I thought, I mean, I've got nothing to lose. I may as well go.
Yeah.
So about this time, 27 years ago, I was probably in detox, thinking about going into treatment in early February of 1999. And that treatment for me worked. And it was a 12-step treatment program. So I learned and I read a lot about that mode of recovery. And something clicked for me that had never clicked before.
What was it you said like something sort of clicked that made you want to stay this time and stay on your journey of sobriety? What were the things that kept you drinking? Like what were the things that were there fears? Like I hear a lot of people say like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to be boring or I'm going to lose friends. Or was it just the addiction itself or was there a story around it?
I think for the last years of my drinking, I really was a daily drinker. I was very physically dependent on alcohol. So I think the fear was around being sober. I think the fear was around living without alcohol. I don't know why I would have wanted to live without alcohol. And I really didn't believe alcohol was the problem. I believed if I had the right job or if I had the right relationship or if only.
Yeah.
And that was not the case. So I really didn't know how to function without alcohol. And that's what I learned when I was separated from it for a long enough time to actually have some new tools introduced to me. And, I was in my late 20s and I really didn't know how to live on my own without using substances to cope emotionally, to relax, to reward myself, to sleep, and then when the physical dependence developed, if I stopped drinking, I would get ill and I had alcoholic seizures. I would not be able to work. I'd have the shakes. I'd have just all of this array of symptoms for, a young woman in her 20s. That was, I didn't realize at the time that's what I was going through, but it was alcohol induced.
Yeah, that takes a lot of courage.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
it did. And I guess the fear was of then letting people down, of making a promise, kind of having my work support me and going to treatment. So then it was, it really was a one day at a time enlightenment, slowly, but change happens. And
Yeah.
once big change happens, then there's momentum. It's like going to the gym or like starting a vitamin regime. At first you're not necessarily feeling better. Sometimes you're feeling worse, but you're doing okay because you've eliminated the problem.
Yes.
But you're not feeling okay yet. So it's a process. It's a process. And for everyone, it's different.
Yes.
That's why it's good to talk to other people that are going through similar situations so you can understand, what's working for them.
Yes. And it's interesting because I think sometimes you hear, alcohol is something that, it can help you belong. What you said, it can help you relax. It can help you feel it's like that liquid courage to be confident, maybe to be loved. And then underneath that fear, like I found, it's like the question was, how will I belong? How will I relax? How will I feel confident when you've relied on this substance for so long? And then you're left with this feeling of like, okay, like coming to peace with yourself.
And I didn't have much so I don't know what was happening for you when you stopped drinking 10 years ago. I imagine, you had somewhat of an established life and support system and social situation. I didn't have any of that left.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know, and maybe in some ways easier because it wasn't like I had to re-enter a social scene and all of a sudden now Susan wasn't drinking. It was, anybody who knew me was really glad I wasn't drinking anymore, like family. And to be honest, I didn't have a lot of friends left in the end. I was drinking alone. I was going to work. I was drinking alone. I was kind of avoiding the gatekeepers who were checking up on me. So, I was developing or getting over social anxiety, I suppose, in early recovery and early sobriety. So if I did go back into like a club situation or a bar situation from the past, I would find that very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And particularly people that knew I liked to drink. I had people send me shots or send me drinks. And in early recovery, that can be very challenging. But I had the resources and I had the tools to kind of get through that.
Do you think that women are judged differently with alcohol abuse, like than men are?
I think women are judged differently, period. And it's we do live in a patriarchal society, so that's it. I don't say that as from anything other than that is a reality. So women are definitely, we face different barriers, having children, having families, being homemakers, being caregivers. And when alcohol's involved, I think there is a distinct level of guilt, shame, and remorse. I won't compare it or trump it towards a man's experience, but it is a different experience. And I'm really happy to see a lot of recovery programs go online so that there's a virtual ability for women. There, like the barriers are coming down. There's more and more access. And I've met a lot of women over my 27 years. The internet was barely around, right? So online recovery was not a thing.
Yes.
Maybe it was if you had some kind of a chat capability on your on a computer. But now there are amazing resources and books and podcasts like yours that are talking about these things. So women don't have to feel alone or isolated. There's a sober, curious movement. There's dry January, and none of these things were around
Yeah. Or
before. It was very,
even when you go out now, like there's mocktails,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or
There's
yeah. But I
there's
do think that
options.
that women, I remember hearing, I was out somewhere and somebody was telling a story of a woman who I think it was alcohol and drugs, and she had kids, and they were like, how could she do that when she
Hmm.
has kids? And I don't think they would have said that if it was a man.
And as if it's a choice, right? Addiction is
Yeah.
not a choice. No mother, decides that she's going to become an alcoholic
No.
or
And that's,
caregiver.
yes. And that's the thing I love that you just said that, because for me, and I know that alcohol is something, it's not like you just wake up one day and you're an alcoholic. It kind of slowly creeps up on you,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
And there's like an invisible gray line that we cross. And
Yeah.
whether it's that, I mean, I don't know. There's just many different things. For me, it was maybe taking the morning drink where I thought, why didn't somebody tell me about this sooner? Where the hangover just is eliminated. And I would have a drink in the morning and I would feel okay. And I could last a little bit longer than I could. And I wouldn't feel all of the effects. I thought, well, this is brilliant. I mean, maybe that was a bit of a line.
Yeah.
Who knows? I also, being someone who, used cocaine, it was very sobering. So
Yeah.
when I was forced to sort of stop cocaine because I didn't have any money or resources to obtain it anymore, I realized how much I was drinking, and I started to have those falling down or blackout moments. So using other substances can be, have that kind of concurrent where you really don't realize how much you're consuming, or the alcohol poisoning. I might have got alcohol poisoning had I not been using other substances as stimulants. So
Right.
there's combinations of substances that can mask maybe how damaging
Yeah.
or how dangerous things are.
And but when you quit cocaine, was it something, do you go through the same withdrawal as you do with alcohol? Is it a different sort of withdrawal that you go through?
It's a different sort of withdrawal, and I probably at that time, there was a time I was using cocaine daily. At that time when it was kind of petering out of my, diminishing out of my situation in Vancouver, partly because I didn't have money. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I started drinking more, but also differently. I started drinking the same. I
Yeah.
was drinking the same, but I didn't have that sobering effect from the cocaine. So
Okay.
I couldn't seem to, get the balance right anymore. Whereas with the cocaine, I thought that I had some sort of a balancing ability. So there's a lot of, we're impaired and we're making decisions thinking, I'm okay. If I have this much alcohol and I have this much cocaine, I'm okay. I feel sort of normal.
Mm.
But it was highly impaired. And then I was also highly impaired the following day. And that's when I used to have a lot of accidents or seizures, and my work would be impacted. Um,
So what is the
yes,
difference in, like, so what is high functioning then? Like there are people that have addiction, but they're high functioning.
it's a great question. I see high functioning as on the outside, life appears manageable. So often addiction is measured by how manageable one's life is. So when I'm doing an intake with a client and questioning, querying how, it's not so much about quantity or number, because we expect people to minimize. Addiction is the chronic indicators of addiction are rationalization, minimization,
Mm.
and denial. So you're not sure you're going to get, accurate answers. But if you ask them where they're experiencing consequences, have there been any DUIs? Have there been any impaired charges? Has there been missed work? Has there been impairment to child care? When you start to flush out these areas, and if the answer is no across the board, then you've got someone who's functioning, yet they're in my office for some reason.
Mhm.
So it might be family then kind of coming in and saying, we're concerned from
Yes.
what we're experiencing as consequences. You may not be experiencing consequences, but we are, and we care about you. So it's there usually are consequences if you can kind of flesh them out. But very highly successful people, lawyers, for example, who there's usually financial means and a very self-will, very driven career that can be very challenging for them, a very great ability to debate and argue one side for things. So successful people can be success and money can be clinical indicators as well, and barriers to getting well because everything on the outside looks okay. So
Mhm.
they, it's harder for them. Celebrities, we see that with celebrities, right? And they're surrounded by enablers, people that, well, I'm working for them. I don't want to say anything, kind of a
Yeah.
people pleasing mentality. So it's, affects different sort of functioning levels. Does that
Yes.
answer your question around high
Yeah. Yeah.
functioning?
And I think it is, for me, when I decided to stop drinking, I think I shared this with you. I went online because, I thought I don't look like somebody who has a drinking problem.
Yeah.
And even when I got sober, people were like, really?
Yeah.
You?
Yeah.
Well, people who knew me were like, yeah, really. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think but I think that I remember seeing celebrities that were sober, and there was something, and not that I look like these people, but there was like Elle McPherson or
Yeah.
all these different people. And it was like, oh, okay. Because we have this idea of what addiction looks like. And we
Hmm.
don't realize like it could be anybody. It's not just sort of that stereotypical look of what we think it is.
Absolutely. And not everyone that stops drinking was addicted in all of those respects, right? So it
Yeah.
is there is a scale of now we call it substance use disorder, but for ease addiction, and there's different levels of, and that can help in terms of treatment planning. But
Mhm.
it's not everybody. I remember people would say like, "Why aren't you drinking? Are you?" Um, like there had to be some really clear reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
When not that because I was too old to probably be pregnant then, but yeah, it's like there had to be some distinct reason. And, I guess I rehearsed something, or I'm not drinking today, and people would still, people have a hard time understanding or hearing that. So they'd still fill a glass or offer me a drink. And you just have to be very consistent and boundaried about your messaging. No,
Mhm.
thank you, or I'm not drinking, or, I don't want to break out into handcuffs. And that's my
Yeah.
funny line. But then when people knew what I did for a living, because I worked in the recovery profession early on in my recovery, so
Yeah.
I guess they kind of, whatever, they told themselves their own stories. But not everyone who stops drinking is doing it. Like I have lots of friends who don't drink for just because they feel better not drinking.
I
It
know.
doesn't really agree with them, or
Well,
they don't want the
especially now.
calories.
Yes, and especially now. I mean, the linkage with women in cancer and
Yeah,
specifically
it's
breast
huge.
cancer is
Yeah,
huge. And
absolutely.
what is the difference? Like for me, I don't know if necessarily I was an alcoholic, but I definitely had a drinking problem because I could go a few days without drinking. But my problem was that when I had a drink, I couldn't find the off switch. Or if people said,
Hmm.
let's go out for a glass of wine, I'm like, one, like the bottle. Like I
Hmm.
just didn't understand that. So
Yeah,
is there a
yeah.
difference between a drinking problem and having addiction? Like where does that fall in there?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, and some of those indicators are the manageability, where someone, doesn't have to be drinking a ton for their life to be unmanageable, but
Mhm.
maybe it's interfered. Maybe they've had a DUI, and so they're going to make a change in their behavior. And I like this sort of framework where, there's people that don't drink at all. There's people that can take a drink or leave a drink. And then it's the third and the fourth category that kind of get a little bit more slippery, where the third category person might get a DUI and then decide that's too great a risk. I'm not going to drink again.
Mhm.
The fourth category would be like, oh, okay, I'm fine with Ubering, not a problem. Parking's hard to find in Toronto anyways. They wouldn't see it as a problem, but they would adapt. Or
Mm.
if it were a relationship that instigated a change, and well, they'll find another girlfriend or boyfriend if one doesn't appreciate
Yeah.
their drinking or like their drinking. So they're not, there's a bit more of like a blind spot. So that's sort of that invisible line that somebody's crossed. And there's lots of ASAM criteria, the Association, the American Society for Addiction Medicine, and lots of frameworks that are quite technical. But I like the manageability one because it's sort of very individual. And
Yes.
where, and when I'm working with someone, I want to meet them where they're at. I don't want to come at them with a diagnosis or, a pathology or something, because the word addiction freaks people out. Nobody wants to really hear that. Right. So it's like,
Yes.
well, how is it? So, there's people in recovery that had very little time drinking, but maybe their family, they had the genetic parents were alcoholic and they saw it destroy others. So they just go kind of right for recovery. I often jest that people, kids who have parents who are alcoholic, they should maybe in recovery, they should start saving for rehab rather than college, right? Because this is very realistic that
Yes.
um, there is that genetic component too. So people stop drinking for a lot of reasons, and addiction is one of them, possibly the main one. But everyone has to decide too, like
Mm.
whether or not they're comfortable with that.
And
Um,
is it when people drink, like, do you think that the addiction is people are sad or maybe they're hurt or they think that or stressed and they like you see all these things sometimes on Instagram where it's like mommy's little helper and it's a glass of
mhm,
wine,
mhm,
right? That it's
mhm,
masking something deeper.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think people use substances, and so I think they drink for really good reasons.
Yeah.
And they're their own good reasons, but primarily relief and reward. So it's relief from what a stressful day, emotions, life, relationships. I mean, relationships with people were a big reason why I drank. And
Mhm.
I didn't really know what was wrong, but that it was a big factor of how I related to people and how they related to me, and not getting along, and a lot of self-will, and on my part a lot of defiance, and I put myself in situations with people that I wasn't being my authentic self. So when they behaved a way I didn't like, I'd go nuclear on them, and then alcohol added to that. So um, it people do drink for all of those reasons you've mentioned,
Yes.
emotional regulation, and then it becomes a habit, right?
Yeah.
Like our coffee or a chocolate. Like if I had to stop drinking coffee tomorrow morning and having a bit of chocolate, I'm pretty irritable. It's something that I enjoy. Am I dependent on it? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to get a headache if I don't have my coffee, but I kind of have to work myself up to that. If I'm deciding to take a break from coffee or deciding to take a break from sugar, I kind of have to, work up to that. Just, I know that I'm going to feel uncomfortable with it. So,
Yes. And I think that that's really important to talk about because I think when people decide whether it's quitting drinking or whatever it is, there is that period of where it's really uncomfortable.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I remember for me, I remember I was exhausted, first of all, and I would go to bed and, luckily my boys were young, so they went to bed at 8 and I would go to bed. And I would remember like, okay, I made it through another day. And I just wanted to get through that day. And then I think it was about 2 weeks into it, I got up around 5 and I was taking my dog for a walk and I was seeing the delivery trucks coming and a runner would like wave at you and you'd wave back and you sort of saw the sun coming up and all of a sudden I was like, I'm not giving up anything. I'm gaining something.
yeah,
And that was like so exciting to me. And
yeah,
and I think that's the thing, like, you know, sometimes because I think like you, I'm very open about, that I don't drink. And people ask me questions like, well, aren't you afraid you're going to be boring? And aren't you afraid of this? And I'm like, no, like if people think I'm boring, like, well, that's on them. Like I don't,
I would never use the word boring to describe you.
but, but I think it is
I
like,
know what you mean.
yeah. Or even just, I love waking up in the morning and not having any shame, not having of like, oh my God, did I say the wrong thing? Did I do the wrong thing? Did I talk too much? Did I flash my boobs? Whatever it was. Like, it's just, there's this beautiful clarity that you have. And I even feel that when problems do arise for me, I stay with them and I see them very clearly. And
Mm-hmm.
it is and it is harder at times because we're looking at it. We don't have that thing to
Mm-hmm.
escape. But
Mm-hmm.
yet I can say that I feel that I'm a better person because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you described that beautifully. And I'll tell you, I went into detox not thinking I had a problem and
Mm.
proceeded to treatment after 10 days in detox and came out
So
of
you didn't
treatment.
think you had a problem?
Didn't know. It
Wow.
was life was the problem. And I was
Okay.
so it was very much a victim mentality where it was pour me, pour me, pour me, another
Mm.
drink. And I was, that the story that I was telling myself was if this would change or if only. And then I started to learn that I was not the center of the universe and victims don't stay sober. And part of me started to buy into that, feeling a little bit better and really hearing from these other women in recovery. So that was definitely a pinnacle point, was hearing from other people in recovery, what was working for them, why it was working for them. And I've always been, I'd say, addicted to other people's stories. Ever
Mm.
since I was a kid, I loved talk shows and I loved the makeover show. So I was well set up to see these women transition before my very eyes in the 21 days I was in treatment. And if they were changing, I was like, maybe I'm changing a little bit,
Mhm.
but that first spring, so then I came out of treatment and I was like, I think I was atheist. I didn't really believe in anything when I went in. And I think I came out really believing that I did not do this for myself. So something other than me has been at work here.
Mm.
And I don't know what that is, but I'm willing to, open my mind and consider that something else has been at play here.
Mm.
So that was quite a change in 21 days. And that first spring I had in recovery, seeing flowers, hearing birds, like it sounds so hokey, but it was like
Oh,
my world went from black and white to color.
no, that's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
it really was, an awakening. It really was a rebirth,
Yes.
and where I started to feel like a version of myself that I liked. I didn't have the guilt and the shame and remorse. I still had a lot of behavior that I felt needed to be righted, and wrongs that needed to be righted. That wreckage of, whether I had stolen time from people or money from people. I had lots of that soot from the past to sort, but I was acquiring tools
Mm.
to deal with that, right? So I didn't stay in it as long, and to come out of that victim mentality and into an empowered
Yeah.
story, which was, I've got another chance here at life, and to build a life that I don't want to escape from.
Mm.
How do I build a life and curate something for myself and my loved ones that I don't want to escape from? And
Yeah.
that's hard. We live in such an escape hatch society.
Yeah.
We can just, it's at our fingertips to escape.
Yes. And it's also like we hack everything now, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
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 So it's interesting that you say that because it is, we can just want to feel better immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you look at this and do you feel that the gift of your sobriety is the work that you're doing now? Because I think that with life, like life isn't perfect for a lot of people, but we always have choice.
Yeah.
And what you chose to do through your recovery is now helping other people through theirs, and you probably wouldn't even be in this if you hadn't gone through that.
Exactly. So it really is, recovery is my superpower. And I do feel like this is a calling, and it's a special calling. Back when before 12-step recovery was started by Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, I was a psychology major, and Bill Wilson and Carl Jung wrote to each other. I don't know if you know this history. And Carl Jung posited that alcoholism was a spiritual void, and that we consumed spirits, because they called them spirits back then, to fill this spiritual void. And when I heard that, it just married that quest for knowledge I'd always had, being a philosophy and a psychology major. I was always seeking. I didn't realize what I was seeking was probably a spiritual solution to the way I was geared towards life, like whatever that default was. And of course, stuff happens too, that made me very thirsty at a young age and wanting to escape. But I thought that was quite profound. And I really did relate to that, because there is something very, not religious, but very just mind, body, soul connected that happens when you see the world without that substance between you and the world. There's something beautiful that happens when you pet the dog, when you are with a child, or with, in my case, a lot of other people's teenagers, that just lights you up. And whatever that is, to have been given the gift to connect to that, really is, it's healed my little girl who didn't have anyone to talk to when I was entering into my substance use and, self-harm, because it was eating disorder before substance use, right? So I was definitely seeking a way to fill a void. And, so, that was good. That was smart of my little girl to be looking for that, but none of those methods were sustainable. So now I've found something that is, and that grows, and much like your spiritual practice with is it Buddhism? Right? Like it doesn't matter so much what it is, but find something that floats your boat and go for it. So, it's a long way of answering.
No, I love it. And I like the spiritual part, because I always felt, and I remember, I have a friend in my life, and he's a shaman, and he's sober. And we talk about how I felt when I drank, I got to a point where you're vibrating at a very low level. And at that level, what are we attracting in?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. A lot of,
And I also agree with you when you say it's your superpower, because there's just this clarity. Like, you see everything, and the good, the bad, the ugly. But when I go into a room, I can see, like, okay, this is where I want to go. I'm not going to go over there, because you just have this clarity, and it does feel like a superpower.
And that vibrating at a different frequency, like, I started to hear that concept through some of, the seeking I still do for knowledge and growth. And that really made a lot of sense to me, because I knew even before, I love breath work and I love yoga, and that's very frequency tuning, mind and body work too. So I'm drawn to these things that are very intuitive, but they're not necessarily what society has said will make you successful, or right. So we've all got to find our own groove in that, but it's really coming back to self and being grounded, and that mental clarity, and then a passion for something. Look, and not every day, like, I've gone through lots of things. Recovery has not been balloons and candies and roses. Like, it's not been it's been a struggle, but it's certainly better than, I don't think I would be alive, and I wouldn't have been able to help the people that I've helped, and people that they help as they go on their journey. Like, it's extremely rewarding. And you can kind of plateau wherever you want to plateau, or not plateau, and keep changing and growing.
And you really find out who you are. Right? Like, it really is a discovery of who you are. And depending on how long you've been, addicted to something, but you really get, and one of the things that I found with me is that I tended in social situations, I would get very shy. I would kind of keep to myself a bit. And alcohol was my liquid courage.
Mm-hmm.
And now if I go out, like I honor that part of me. I honor that part of me that I actually do like to just listen to what people are saying. And I will speak when something is interesting to me or I want to add something, but I'm okay with being quiet.
Yeah. And I never would have known that about you. Like from back when I met you, we were practically still teenagers.
Yes.
I wouldn't have known that. You struck me as extremely confident and beautiful and transitioning from modeling to photography. Always had your camera around. So, the story we tell ourselves is not what others see often either. But I
Yeah.
was also I was more on the quiet side, and I love to listen. And
Yeah.
so I'm in a good career. I love to listen and I loved other people's stories. So
Yeah.
yeah, we can't all be extroverts. Yeah, but the world is designed for extroverts. And
Yes.
it's I think it's
Yeah.
a little bit harder in some respects.
So what do you think is the most misunderstood part of sobriety?
Oh, of sobriety? Yeah, that it's boring somehow, or
That's
that
the number one thing people would ask me.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, isn't it boring? And I'm like, no.
yeah, that it's boring and you're never going to have fun again. And also that it's something, maybe that it's an outcome and it's not a way of life.
Yeah.
So why do you still go to those recovery meetings? Well, because
Mhm.
somebody was there when I first started, and because it's my community, and because, like, why wouldn't I go to something that I'm still a part of and I feel a sense of belonging? But
Yeah.
there's this notion that we get what we need. It's like, I don't know, doing a course and we graduate. Like, for
No.
me, recovery has not been that. It's a constant learning and growing. And I've got people that I'm alongside who are learning and growing too, and finding out about, just, yeah, you're operating on a different
Yeah.
frequencies with different people. They're kind of more it's like it's my tribe, or however you want to say it. So
And that
um
addiction can shift too,
yeah,
right? Like I
yeah,
find, like I know people who, are alcoholics and then they start smoking a lot or
oh
smoking
yeah,
pot. Like it can just shift into something or shopping or whatever it
totally,
is, right?
totally. It's, yeah,
So
I have had a mentor who said that once we stop drinking, then we get to start working on all of those other things. And it's true, we really, it is a bit like whack-a-mole at first, because like my eating disorder came up when I stopped drinking, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not prepared for this. And then other things pop up, and today, like, there's gambling, there's relationship, there's
yeah.
so many things that we can escape into
Yeah.
really easily.
Yeah.
Social media,
Yeah.
rewiring of the brain, and hijacking the brain. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so, I'm learning a lot about tech and young people, right? Because it
Yeah.
hijacks the brain a lot, like substances
That
do. And
dopamine
when
hits
it's
away.
developing, that can, yeah, really rewire it in a way that might be, like, we need to understand how it's damaging. So yeah, for sure. So that's one. What's another one that, yeah, that it's an outcome as opposed to a process. I guess that, just the whole addiction, like, it can't happen to me. That's, well, and that, I think recovery is always possible. So I never believe that, it's not, it's only, and sometimes the recovery happens for the loved one or the parent or the caregiver, not the individual with the substance use disorder. So, um, yeah, I think those are ones that jump out for me.
So if alcohol disappeared tomorrow, what would women have to face emotionally?
Oh, that's a great question. If alcohol disappeared tomorrow, there's my first response is, the first thing that came to mind is, like, it's a relief.
Mm,
Like, it kind of was when I realized I didn't have to drink anymore. It's like kind of a relief just to
yeah.
say. So if it disappeared, I mean, I'm sure we'd miss it, and there would be a grieving process, no doubt. And then, and then, yeah, maybe people would. learn to navigate beautifully without it. Or there'd just be a lot of really restless, irritable, and discontent people out there. and my practice would be full. I don't know. Like they're but what do you think would happen if alcohol disappeared
I think
tomorrow?
that it would be challenging at first for a lot of people, but then I think people would really discover who they truly
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
You know, like it's funny because people think alcohol is a truth serum, but I think not drinking alcohol is your truth serum.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's really well put.
Yeah.
It is it's a truth serum at first, but do you ever have that? Then the next day someone's like, oh, they're kind of clammed up because they know they overshared and like they're in their discomfort and you're uncomfortable watching their discomfort, but you're like, okay, I'm glad that's not me because I don't, oh, yeah, for
So
sure.
if someone is struggling, because I know, because you don't just wake up and go, I have an issue. Like I know for me, I always had this voice, and I believe it was my brother saying, Helen, you got to look at this. You got to look at this. You got to look at this. And then finally I did, and I did something. If somebody is struggling and they have those voices where you wake up in the morning and go, okay, I'm not going to drink today. Right. And then all of a sudden you get to 5 o'clock and you make that excuse for why you're going to, or whatever it is. What is the first step that they can do for themselves?
Talk to somebody who's been there, or a professional, whether it's through your work in your EAP, because that's a very universal feeling of regret in the morning. And then as the day goes on, and that, a testament to not drinking. And then as the day goes, that happened to me every day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to drink today. By 4 o'clock, I'm getting shaky. And I'm like, well, maybe just a little bottle of wine,
Yeah.
Like it's I didn't walk by a liquor store.
A little bit. I remember I would leave like this much in the bottle.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh no, I didn't drink the whole bottle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or that'd be my middle of the night when the shakes started to come, or the morning sip. But, to know that you're not alone, and to talk that through with someone, because I think the worst thing we can do, I remember hearing this, you'll like that, because it's a photography reference, is like my mind is a dark room where negatives develop. And I always remembered that, because it's like, don't stay in your own head with these thoughts.
Yes.
It's not a problem that's designed to be solved by the person that that has the problem.
Yeah.
When we're impaired, talking to somebody who's not impaired about our impairment is the best kind of way to go.
Yeah.
And not be, and you don't have to take, you don't have to do what anybody else suggests, but just to bounce it off, bounce that thinking off of somebody that you respect, or find someone, to bounce that thinking off of.
Yeah.
It's really not meant to be done, on one's own, with that very mind that is in the problem.
Well, I really admire your courage, because I do think it takes courage. And what you have done with it, I think, is absolutely beautiful, and that you continue to share your story and try to help others. And I'm just so grateful that there are people like you out there that are doing this work, because it's so important.
Thank you, Helen, and right back at you, because you're helping, and this is a great podcast.
Thank you. I always like to, at the end of the show, invite my guests to say something, to leave something with the listeners. Is there anything that you would like to leave with the listeners today?
It's a complicated world, and we're going through complicating times. So reminding oneself that you have the power to turn things off and to ground. Whenever there's adversity around in my life, I try to step up my self-care and my grounding. So whether that's, something that really makes me feel better and makes me feel more connected to me, because there's a lot we can't control, but there's a lot we can control too.
And that community, I think that's, like you said, like reach out.
Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah. Especially even if you are sober, it's like you're right. Like this is really challenging times that we are in. And
Mhm.
just to reach out to say to someone like, I'm feeling really sad and have them go like, I know. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
And
and if
yeah.
people want to find out more about you, how do they do that?
They can find me at on Instagram at sustainable__recovery. My book is What's Wrong with My Teen, and they can find that everywhere books are sold or on my website, what'swrongwithmyteen.com. And then there's access to my blog and to other social media. So really internet search for my name, Susan Raphael, and they'll find lots of interesting pieces because I like to cover a lot of different ground.
Mhm. Yeah.
Whatever tweaks me as interesting, and there's certainly no shortage of stuff out there
Yeah. Well, I'll
on
definitely
this
have
stuff.
your information in the show notes so it's easy for
Sure.
people to find.
Yeah.
Again, I thank you so much for being here. I thank you for sharing yourself. And to our listeners, thank you also for being here and taking this time to share with us. Have a beautiful
Yes.
day, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.